But first, the sad news of Michael Jackson's death continues to dominate the headlines. And yesterday, the album Michael Jackson #1s topped the album chart, whilst 6 of his hit singles re-entered the top 40. Now, in a grim twist of fate, it seems the man who was on the brink of a global comeback to reinstate himself as the king of pop achieved just that in his death. So is it a little bit bittersweet to see him back at the top of the charts again?
I'm delighted he's back at the top of the charts. I think he should have always been there, because I always will be a massive fan of his. And I was so shocked, still am, that he died so suddenly, really. But already the paper, the media coverage and the TV stations that, you can't turn anything on now without it being Michael, it's already wearing me down a bit. And then all the stories start coming out. And it's kind of like, can we just remember him for who he was and what he did for pop music and how he changed the face of pop and video making and all of that. Just leave the rest, let it go, because it's driving me mad.
I understand what you're saying, but I mean, I think the thing is, until we've now going to have this span, I think, of several weeks of speculation until, there is a confirmed cause of death and we know exactly what happened. The speculation is just going to grow and grow. I have to say, I wasn't that shocked when I heard the news. I haven't seen him physically close up for 4 years. I covered the beginning of the court case in Santa Maria when I was still in America. And then he looked extremely frail. Obviously, he was very distressed at the time, but physically, he looked so frail. So when I heard he'd, lined up all these dates to do, I was shocked, and we'd spoken about it, and we kind of said, I don't see how that's going to happen.
Well, we did the show on Friday, and I said everything that I wanted to say then. And you're right, I didn't think the concerts would go ahead, and I did buy tickets just last Wednesday, so I was a little bit annoyed about that. It's not funny, no, I'm very sad, but at the same time I have been playing his music all weekend. We all have, yeah. I've had a lot of friends around. Yeah, I've been partying a bit at the weekend. Michael Jackson was definitely in the forefront there, and I'm really pleased that he's gone to #1, but I have not read a single newspaper all weekend because I can't stand it. I can't stand just don't know what to believe. There's so much rubbish out there.
It's also kind of annoying as well that they go from, now it's like the king of pop is dead and it's all sad and we're all in mourning, but it was only a few months ago or a few years ago that it it was Wacko Jacko.
Exactly.
And have a go, and then it's.
I thought my son was quite sweet, because he's 26, and this says it all for me. He said, "Oh, that's like now, that's my youth over." I was brought up on, 26 years of Michael Jackson, which is absolutely right. And he was a legend, and there will be legends after this. And it is incredibly sad, and we're sorry, and that should be the end of it. And then you think of all the people, all the soldiers out there who are dying on a daily basis that the press never pick up on, that we should be supporting. And I'm sure he would agree with that. We have to think about his children and his family, and now let's get on with it.
Yeah. Right, next, in a new proposal outlined by Education Secretary Ed Balls, parents of children who regularly behave badly in class could be hauled before the courts under wide-ranging government school reforms to be unveiled this week. Failure to comply with the new rules could lead to parents being fined or given a community sentence. So will the behaviour of kids change if it's their parents that are held accountable?
Well, I think the problem is that the schools have no control anymore. So if they've got, I think what they're talking about is the kid who constantly gets detention and, the odd telling off at school, and it's just not working. And then, therefore, you then have to address what's happening at home. Is he is he being told at home that it's wrong and he shouldn't? So I think working with the parents and calling them in and saying, look, we need to address this, and maybe educate the parents as well, is a good thing. But I'm not sure about blaming and
hauling parents off to court.
And hauling them off to court, or
it's got to be a balancing act, hasn't it? I mean, as you said, I feel sorry for schools these days, because in my day, if I came home from school and said to my mum that, and I went to school in Scotland, and you got the belt if you were really, really naughty, but you certainly got detentions and stuff. If I came home and told my mum that, I'd get another clip round the ear for being naughty at school.
I'd get, you must have deserved it.
But it seems, but without even asking you probably what you did.
She didn't ask me what
you didn't know. They didn't want to know.
They
just
deserved it.
Well, they trusted the schools to make those decisions.
They supported the schools when they were allowed to discipline children. But, you know, like you said, they're just not allowed to anymore. Their hands are tied, and the children know that. They know how much power they've got. And so, you know, they can abuse the system. But, you know, the parents, I don't think there's any point in fining parents for the bad behaviour of their children. If the children are badly behaved in the first place, it's because they're not being brought up properly already. You know, and what do you do about that? How can you go around fining people for not bringing their kids up properly? I don't know what the answer is. Just thank God I haven't got any of those little things.
The point is, it's a minority. You have to say this. It's a minority. They will make it look as though, and if the government goes into this huge overdrive about a minority, basically, of parents, there are a minority of children and a minority of parents who are children themselves who've never known any discipline. I think the focus should go back to the school, give the school the power. You know, the punishment to exclude a child, what a load of old rubbish that is. There's a school that I was listening to on the radio who actually the child has to come to school and is left on its own all day, you know, doesn't see its peers, gets punished. That's a punishment. Punishment is exclusion is not a punishment.
They love that. It's a day off.
Of course they do. So I think they should focus back on the school, and in really severe cases, in places where the parents themselves have no respect for law and order.
But parents have to become involved though with that as well. They have to back the school up. You get parents going,
there
no,
are
you
parents
can't have...
who are again a minority who have no sense of law and order, and the police are called in, and some schools now, it's terrible, but you've got to go back to the basic of saying, if you've not been taught it, we'll teach you. This is right, this is wrong.
That's
and
far more
focus
constructive
on the
than
schools.
fining people. If people are struggling to know how to bring up kids, possibly because they didn't have a great example themselves, possibly because they're too young to know what to do.
And if that doesn't work, bring back the birch.